What if the person who left the deepest wound in your soul once shared your childhood bed, your secrets, your blood? They didn't scream, they didn't strike, but they broke you in ways no outsider ever could, and they were family. Not all betrayal comes with a knife. Sometimes it comes with a familiar smile and the title of sibling. What if the deepest pain you carry didn't come from a stranger or an enemy, but from someone who once held your hand when you were scared of the dark? Someone who grew up under the same roof, shared the same memories, and carries the same blood as you. That kind of betrayal doesn't just hurt, it redefines you, because it was never supposed to happen. From the moment we're born, we're fed comforting lies. That family is forever. That blood is thicker than water. That siblings are built-in best friends for life. But what happens when those bonds turn toxic? When your safe space becomes a silent war zone? What happens when the one who was supposed to protect you poisons you instead? Sibling betrayal is one of the quietest forms of suffering. You don't talk about it. You don't cry out. You bury it deep, excuse it, rationalize it, because they're family. You're taught to forgive endlessly, to make peace even when it costs you your dignity. But the Stoics, they teach something else. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask you to hate. It doesn't demand revenge. It invites you to see the truth without illusion, to strip away the fantasy and protect your peace with logic. It's not about cutting people off in anger. It's about recognizing with clarity when someone has crossed a line that must never be crossed. Even if that person is your sibling, as Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters. And sometimes, the strongest response is not reconciliation, but removal. This video isn't about bitterness, it's about awakening. It's about naming the 7 forms of sibling betrayal that you should never tolerate. Not because you're heartless, but because you finally decided to stop bleeding for people who keep handing you the knife. These aren't isolated mistakes, they're recurring patterns. They leave invisible scars that silently shape your confidence, your relationships, and your future. And unless you confront them, they will continue to define you. So let's begin. 7 betrayals. 7 lines that, once crossed, must never be erased. Betrayal number 1. Undermining you behind closed doors. Not all betrayal is loud. It doesn't always come with screaming or slammed doors. Sometimes it whispers in quiet corners and echoes for years. 1 of the most painful betrayals from a sibling is the silent sabotage when they smile in your face, but secretly speak against you when you're not around. They sit with you at the dinner table, nod as you share your dreams, and play the role of support while quietly twisting your words behind your back. They go to your parents and highlight your failures. They plant seeds of doubt. They turn the people who matter most against you. They poison the well while pretending to offer you water. And the cruelest part, the damage is invisible. You can't prove it, but you feel it. You sense your parents looking at you differently. You feel the shift in how they question your choices, how they hesitate when they used to believe, and deep down, you know where the poison came from. This is not just a betrayal of trust. It's a betrayal of identity, of the idea that your family would be your foundation. But here's the truth. No matter how close the bloodline, no one has the right to quietly tear you down. And that is betrayal number 1. You start to question yourself. You wonder, why do others see me this way? Where did that version of me come from? Until one day, you hear it. A phrase you've never said. A story you never told. and it didn't come from a stranger. It came from your sibling, the only person who could have painted such a version of you. This kind of betrayal doesn't just hurt. It fractures the foundation of trust that family is supposed to be built on. Because you were taught one thing: no matter what happens out there, your sibling will be your ally. But now, they've become your silent rival. Not someone who challenges you openly, someone who sabotages you. Quietly, let me share a story with you. There was once a man named Chris, who had spent most of his life chasing one thing: his father's approval. He worked tirelessly, stayed late at the office, provided for the family, but no matter what he did, it never seemed to be enough. Years later, Chris discovered the heartbreaking truth. His younger brother, the same one who always called him a role model to his face, had been secretly poisoning their father's view of him. He told their father that Chris was irresponsible with money, that he made bad decisions, that he wasn't fit to manage the family business. Chris had never suspected it, but once he knew, everything made sense. The way his father grew colder, the constant judgment, the unspoken distance. It wasn't just disappointment, it was manipulation. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the tongue of a traitor is sharper than any dagger, because words, especially whispered behind closed doors, can destroy reputations, break bonds, and plant seeds of resentment that grow for years. And when that betrayal comes from a sibling, the pain is intimate, personal, deep. So what's the lesson here? If someone smiles at you in public but stabs you in private, you owe them nothing. Not trust, not access, not silence. The title of family does not entitle someone to keep hurting you. Trust is earned, not inherited. Staying silent in the face of betrayal is not strength, it's self-betrayal. You must protect your name. You must protect your name. You must protect your truth. And above all, you must protect your peace. Because no relationship, not even family, is worth sacrificing your self-respect. And yes, forgiveness matters. But forgiveness does not mean leaving the door wide open for more harm. Sometimes, the most healing thing you can do is to close the door and finally allow yourself to breathe. But what if the betrayal doesn't come in whispered words behind your back? What if it shows up in moments of your greatest joy? What if the pain comes not from what they say, but from how they react to your success? Betrayal number 2, sabotaging your success. Success is meant to be celebrated, especially within a family. When one sibling rises, the others should feel proud, uplifted, and connected through that victory. But what happens when your growth becomes a threat? What happens when your progress makes your sibling feel smaller, not inspired? One of the most painful betrayals is when a sibling cannot bear to see you win. Instead of cheering for you, they compete. Instead of encouraging you, they criticize. And it doesn't come in open attacks. It shows up in little jabs dressed as jokes. They say things like, "You just got lucky. You're changing too much. You think you're better than everyone now, huh?" But what they're really saying is, "I can't handle your light because it exposes my shadow." This betrayal is subtle. It hides behind sarcasm, passive-aggressive comments, and fake smiles. But the message is clear. They don't want you to shine unless they're shining too. Your growth makes them uncomfortable. Your progress reveals their stagnation, so they try to drag you back, not to help you, but to make sure you never rise higher than them. Let me share another real story. There was a woman named Amanda who worked for years to build her career. Through late nights, missed birthdays, and tireless effort, she finally earned a leadership position at her company. Her parents were beaming with pride. Her friends celebrated her. But her older sister, she offered nothing more than a huff, smile, and said, "Just don't let it go to your head." Then, behind Amanda's back, she told family members that Amanda was becoming arrogant, that she was obsessed with money. The same sister who had borrowed money from Amanda more than once now acted like her success was something to be ashamed of. But this betrayal, it's not about money. It's not about titles. It's about emotional insecurity. A sibling who feels small in their own eyes cannot celebrate someone else's growth, because your success doesn't just remind them of your strength. It reminds them of everything they feel they failed to become. And instead of facing their own reflection, they turn against yours. You work hard, you push through challenges, but instead of being proud of your progress, they try to downplay it. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. While you're busy building, they're busy belittling. But the Stoics taught us a timeless truth. If someone cannot rejoice in your growth, then their presence is not contributing to your growth. Those who truly love you are not afraid of your success. They rise with you. They walk beside you. They hold space for your wins without making it about their wounds. Here's the truth. Your success is not something you should hide. It's not something you should apologize for, and it should never be something you shrink just to make others comfortable with staying small. You don't need to fight them. Just keep walking forward. Let their bitterness fade into background noise. You owe no one an apology for becoming who you were born to be. Betrayal number 3. Using shared history as leverage. There's something sacred about childhood. The private jokes, the quiet moments, the secrets shared in trust. But sometimes, a sibling takes that shared past and turns it into a weapon. What once bonded you becomes a tool of manipulation. They bring up your past mistakes, not to help you grow, but to keep you small. They remind you of things you did or said years ago, not to inspire reflection, but to make you feel guilty, to pressure you into doing what they want. And because it's family, you hesitate, you feel guilty, you feel like you owe them something. But what you really owe is yourself. You owe yourself freedom from a past you've already outgrown. This kind of betrayal often looks like emotional blackmail. Your sibling might say things like, "Remember when I covered for you?" Or, "What if I told Mum what really happened?" Back then, they use your past like a leash, yanking you back every time you try to move forward. And the cruelest part, they do it with a smile, pretending it's just a memory, just a joke, just family stuff. But it's not. It's control. A real story. David had an older brother who knew everything about his childhood struggles. When David became financially successful, his brother would always say things like, "Don't forget you used to have nothing," or "Remember who helped you back then." And every time David hesitated to give him money, the brother would bring up the past, not with love, but with leverage. That's when David realized his success wasn't his own anymore. It was being held hostage by someone who refused to see the man he had become. Stoic philosophy teaches us a powerful truth. No man is the same man he was yesterday. Do not chain someone to their past, and don't let anyone chain you to yours. You have the right to grow. You have the right to evolve. You have the right to move beyond the version of yourself others still cling to. If someone keeps dragging you back into old guilt to control your present, they're not honoring your shared history. They're weaponizing it. The takeaway is this: You are not bound to who you used to be, and anyone who uses your past to manipulate your present does not deserve a seat in your future. Let them hold onto the old story. You're too busy writing a new one defined not by guilt, but by growth. There's a special kind of betrayal that doesn't hide in the shadows. It plays out in broad daylight, in front of others, disguised as humor or casual teasing. And the worst part, it often comes from someone who knows your scars. Someone who once promised, even without words, to protect them. This kind of humiliation is often masked as affection. They say things like, "Relax, I'm just joking," or, "You know I love you." But here's the truth. Love does not ask for applause at your expense. Love does not push you down just to lift itself up. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Laura. She had been dating someone she genuinely cared about. One afternoon, at a family barbecue, her younger brother suddenly blurted out a joke in front of everyone. Remember when she cried over her ex for months and begged him to come back? Everyone laughed. Laura froze. That moment, that private breakdown she had once shared with him in deep vulnerability, was now reduced to a punchline at a picnic table. Later, when Laura confronted him in private, hoping for some understanding, he rolled his eyes and said, "Lighten up, it was just a joke." But it wasn't just a joke. It was betrayal. As Epictetus once said, "The man who laughs at your wounds does not deserve a place in your life." Public humiliation is never harmless. It chips away at your self-esteem. It creates shame. It teaches everyone watching that your pain is something to laugh at. And the message becomes clear: if someone uses your vulnerability for laughs, they are not protecting you, they're exploiting you. And if they don't respect you, you are under no obligation to keep entertaining their presence. Yes, you can forgive them and still walk away. You can love someone from a distance. That protects your dignity. Family does not excuse cruelty, and shared blood does not justify public shame. You deserve relationships that honor your truth, not exploit it. You deserve to feel safe, even at the dinner table. Betrayal number 5. Emotional absence when you needed them most. Not every betrayal comes in the form of words or actions. Some betrayals arrive in silence, in the space where comfort and care should have been. Few things cut deeper than realizing your sibling was absent in the moment you needed them most. You were in pain, you were struggling, you were facing something that flipped your world upside down. You didn't need a miracle, just a message, a phone call, a simple, "How are you holding up?" But it never came. They didn't leave physically, but emotionally, they were gone. They went silent, while your world was falling apart. This kind of betrayal is hard to explain, because on paper, technically, they did nothing wrong. They didn't attack you. They didn't spread lies. They simply weren't there. But that absence, that painful void, it speaks louder than any insult. Let me tell you a story. Jason had worked at the same company for 15 years. Then suddenly, he was laid off. Just weeks later, his relationship ended, and he spiraled into a deep depression. His sister lived only 20 minutes away, and yet not a single word from her. No text, no visit, no "Are you okay?" Eventually, when Jason recovered, enough to ask her why, she said, "I figured you needed space." But Jason didn't need space. He needed someone who cared enough to show up. Seneca once wrote, "Adversity does not build character, it reveals it." When life falls apart, you quickly learn who stands beside you. And sometimes, the loudest truth is revealed through someone's silence, because emotional absence is not neutral. It leaves a mark. It teaches you that your pain isn't important, not even to those who should care the most, and the wound. It cuts even deeper when you're not just grieving your loss, but realizing the people you counted on were never really there. And that's the reality. You cannot force people to care. And you should not keep someone close just because you share DNA. Family is not proven through kind words on the good days, but through presence during your darkest hours. So don't chase emotional ghosts. Don't pour your heart out to people who were never listening. Instead, focus on the ones who show up even when it's inconvenient, because those are the people who deserve a place in your life. The rest, just passing visitors. But sometimes, pain doesn't only come from absence. It comes from presence. When that presence is loaded with expectations you never agreed to. Betrayal number 6, forcing you into family roles that don't serve you. Not all betrayal comes in the form of cruelty or harsh words. Sometimes it hides inside silent expectations, unspoken agreements you never signed but still feel chained to. One of the most draining betrayals from a sibling is when they force you into a role within the family, a role that wears you out, traps you, and slowly makes you disappear. Maybe you're the reliable one, the fixer, the one who always says yes. Or maybe you're the quiet one, the strong one, the one who sacrifices so everyone else can breathe. But have you ever asked yourself, who gave you that role? Did you choose it, or were you assigned it? Siblings often reinforce these roles over time. They expect you to always answer the phone, always lend money, always be the glue that holds the family together. But the moment you try to pull back, the moment you say no or ask for space, suddenly you're selfish. You've changed. But what they really mean is, you're no longer making my life easier at the expense of your own. A real story. Marcus was the eldest son. For years, his younger siblings leaned on him for everything: money, emotional support, even conflict, mediation between their parents. And Marcus carried it all, until one day he burned out. He told them he needed time to care for his own mental health. Their response, they accused him of abandoning the family. They said, "You've always been the strong one. If you don't do it, who will?" But that wasn't love. That was entitlement. Stoic philosophy teaches us, live in alignment with reason, not obligation. You were not born to play a role someone else wrote for you. You were born to live as a free, rational being. And sometimes, living freely means disappointing the expectations that were never yours to begin with. The message here is simple. Family roles are not destiny. They are choices. And if a role causes you pain, burnout, or self-neglect, you have every right to walk away from it. That doesn't make you unloving. It makes you honest. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You don't have to be everything to everyone. It is not your duty to carry the emotional weight of a family that refuses to carry it with you. Step out of the role. Step into your truth, and let the people who truly love you learn to meet you there when they can't control you through expectations. Some will try a quieter tactic, turning others against you to win favor. Betrayal number 7, competing for parental favor at your expense. There's a quiet war in some families, not a battle for love, but for approval. When a sibling turns your parents' affection into a competition, they're often not content with simply shining. They feel the need to dim your light to make theirs seem brighter. And the worst part, you're not being seen for who you truly are. You're being measured against someone who's manipulating the scale. You're not being compared to your true self. You're being compared to a carefully crafted, polished version of your sibling. One they've rehearsed. One designed to win. Let me tell you a story. Jenna had always been close with her mother. They shared routines, late-night talks, laughter over coffee. But things changed when her older sister began showing up more often. She brought flowers, helped with errands, said all the right things, but behind the helpful gestures were subtle remarks. I just worry about Jenna sometimes. I miss the old Jenna. She was more stable back then. The words seemed harmless, but slowly they worked their way into her mother's mind. Jenna began to feel the shift. Suddenly, she was explaining herself more, defending her choices, proving her worth. Eventually, she realized she wasn't being seen clearly anymore. She was being seen through the distorted lens her sister had carefully painted. Stoic wisdom reminds us, the wise man seeks truth, not approval. When someone is willing to distort the truth just to win attention, they're not acting from love. They're acting from fear. Fear of being invisible. Fear of not being the favorite. And in that fear, they're willing to sacrifice the bond you once shared, just to be seen first. The takeaway is simple. You should never have to compete for the love of your parents. If a sibling steps on you just to rise higher, they've already chosen pride over connection. You can't control how others present you, but you can control whether you keep tolerating it. Walk in truth, speak clearly, and let your actions define you, not their performance. You don't need to be the favorite. You need to be free. These 7 betrayals aren't loud. They don't always scream or leave bruises, but they leave deep marks. Because when the hurt comes from a sibling, it's not just pain. It's confusion. It's heartbreak mixed with history. It's silence that echoes for years. Let's name them again. Undermining you behind closed doors, sabotaging your success, using shared history as emotional leverage, publicly humiliating you, disappearing emotionally when you needed them most, forcing you into family roles that crush your spirit, competing for love by turning others against you. These are not harmless missteps. They are betrayals in disguise. Some will tell you to forgive and forget, but forgiveness without boundaries is just permission for it to happen again. You're not cruel for protecting your peace. You're not bitter for walking away. You're not heartless for finally choosing yourself. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask us to hate our siblings. It asks us to see clearly, to remove the haze of emotion and look at the truth. If someone repeatedly harms you, that is not love. That is not loyalty. And it's not something you're required to accept just because you share blood. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What you allow into your life shapes your spirit. If you continue to tolerate betrayal, it will paint your soul with resentment. But if you choose clarity, truth, and boundaries, you shape yourself into someone free. You didn't choose the family you were born into, but you do choose who gets to stay. You choose whose voices matter. You choose what kind of peace you want to build. So let this be the moment you draw the line. Let this be the moment you stop making excuses for pain that wears a familiar face. Now I want to hear from you. Have you experienced any of these betrayals from a sibling? How did you handle it? What did you learn? Share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear it. Like this video if it spoke to something inside you. and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom to help you protect your peace and rebuild your strength. You deserve clarity. You deserve connection that doesn't come at the cost of your dignity. Let that be your standard from this moment forward, because peace is not something you beg for, it's something you build. And sometimes it starts by finally saying, enough.